My name is Bob Teasley. I'm from Herman Miller. I'm going to talk today a little bit about our journey relative to engaging our suppliers and how we reach out to our suppliers, what we've done over the last 3 to 4 years, how we've done that, where we're at today, and kind of where we really kind of need to go to. So first, I want to talk about why. So when we talk about engaging with our suppliers, why would we do that? Why not stay internally focused and think about what's going on inside of our four walls that we can control? We've done some studies at Herman Miller, and when we've looked at those, and these spheres are supposed to kind of indicate the overall net impact that we have on the environment through the products that we make, through the products that we sell. So if you think about Herman Miller over there on your left, kind of that represents about 20% of our total impact inside of our four walls. As you start to then go up and think about where else it goes, we recognize that somewhere in the neighborhood of 80% of the impact we have in the manufacture and sale of product happens at our supply base, based on all the things that they do. So if we think about what we're trying to do in terms of having an impact, a positive impact on the environment, if we stay focused inside of our four walls, we have very little, in terms of the total impact we can have. So we started about 3 or 4 years ago. Dan Broersma, who's with me today from our DFE team, and we started to look at it and say, how do we engage with our suppliers? How can we do this? So we went out and we visited our suppliers, and we did what we call assessments, and we tried to talk to them about what they're trying to do, where they're trying to be, who they're trying to be in the future, thinking about what their vision was. And as we did that, we started to learn a few things. First and foremost, we had to convince them why it was important to them. Not all of them, but some of them definitely. They were all on different points in their journey towards being sustainable. We had to work with them to help them understand how it fit their business goals. Again, all of us here have a pretty good understanding of when we talk about the triple bottom line. Not all of our supply base did. So we had to work with them to try to help them understand that. We had to make sure that we were allocating our resources to the right places, that we had people who were willing to engage, who wanted to engage, and the limited amount of resources we have to go out and try to help that overall reduction in our impact, where could we put those? And then sharing information as part of our journey. We believe you improve what you measure, right? The old axiom. We believe in that. So in order to do that, we had to be able to measure what was going on. When you walk into a supplier and say, oh, by the way, we want to understand everything that's going on within your business. We want you to tell you the impact you're having on the environment. We want to tell you how much energy you're using, how much wastewater you're producing, all of those things. You can imagine not all of them go, sure, let me get that for you right now. And a fair number of them probably would go, I don't know where I can get it. Okay? So we asked, however you want to say that, our suppliers to join us. That's when we started. We reached out and we said, we want you to join us. What goals were we attempting to look at that point in time? We were looking at these as far as 6, really: zero processed water, zero landfill, zero VOCs, the standards, right? Zero hazardous waste. You're using a 100% renewable energy, and you're working on energy reduction, and zero incidents. Those were the 6 things we walked out and said, we want to know these things. So again, how did suppliers respond? Well, tell me how you want it. So we created a template, a tracking form. We sent it out to them. And we said, oh, by the way, don't just send us. Because when they originally started, some of them, they just started sending in spreadsheets and stuff. And here it came in this format, that format. What were you looking for? And so we said, oh, we'll make this easier. We'll create a template. We sent it out in an Excel spreadsheet, and then they got the template. And then they started saying, well, my metrics don't match up to your metrics. And oh, by the way, here it comes. And so now we started getting all of these templates back. What do you have to do with that? Do you look at it, fold it up, and set it down, or do you actually say, well, no, I'm trying to track something, right? If what we measure is what we're going to improve, we got to track it. So we got to take everything off from that. We got to put it in play. What's that do? It creates overhead. Is that what we're trying to do? Not at all. That's what we're trying to do. So we got into this situation of here came all this data, and we were getting this type of stuff from our suppliers going back 2007, 2011. We were looking at our total impact in different areas. We were starting to track against it. Where are we at? Where's our goal? what are we trying to do on our journey to be a sustainable organization of zero impact, if not a net positive impact, right? And it's like, holy cow, are we creating a lot of waste? And the reality of it is when you walk into your suppliers and say, oh, by the way, I want you to join me on this journey, but guess what? I want you to create more waste and do more things. You can imagine, remember before? Hey, tell me all this stuff. But oh, by the way, while you're telling me all this stuff, do more work to tell me all this stuff, right? So it created some turmoil within our supply base as well as within us. How do we get it? Where do we get it? So that's kind of where we were at. Where are we today? Through forums like this, as Dan was talking to some different people, we started to say, what can we do different? How can we do this in such a way that we can create not only a situation where we're getting the information that we want so that we can track, target, make improvements, but also that suppliers themselves can get some value out of it. Where we're at today also shifted in terms of our message. In the past, we talked about zero footprint, perfect vision, those types of things. In the last year or so, Herman Miller has kind of looked at how we talk about things, and we talk about it now in terms of Earthright. That's our sustainable message. And there's really three guiding philosophies that we talk about. Number one being resource smart, okay? So what resources are we using? How are we using them? How are we doing this in a sustainable manner? Eco-inspired designs, thinking about, again, that natural cycle being the key and one of the best examples of how things should be from an eco-inspired design, a closed loop system. So designing our products in such a way that they're eco-inspired. And finally, community-driven. And while why community-driven is so important is if you think about, again, inside of the four walls only and doing things, as opposed to community-driven, we think about it in terms of what's the greater community? Where are we working? Who are we working with? How are we doing those types of things? And having that community-driven causes you to be transparent, causes you to look at ways you can engage with the community. So what we can measure today, we partnered up with a company called Midwest Energy Group right here in Grand Rapids, who helped us begin the process of building a portal. Why did we do that? Why was it important for us to use a third party? Community-driven. If Herman Miller goes out, the earlier slides, and said, and I get all of this information, and I bring it into Herman Miller in a spreadsheet, and I have it residing inside of Herman Miller, I've created waste with my supplier, and oh, by the way, we believe there are a lot of companies out there who are very much interested in doing the same thing. They got to do the same thing again to a different supplier, and then to another supplier in a different format. And again, we're creating this waste that doesn't allow us, enable us to measure what's important. So we are in this process. I'm not sitting here saying, oh, by the way, this is the greatest thing in the world. That's the beauty of it. Today, we can track, and our suppliers can track these 12 categories based on what's important to them. We can look at that from the backside, and we can see what they're doing as far as who our suppliers are and where it's at. I'll explain that a little bit. So suppliers set their own goals. We have our goals. We have what we call our true north, where we want to be. We don't want to walk out and dictate to that supplier. No more than you would like anybody to dictate to you exactly what you have to do. We hope to drive a vision. And we want the supplier to set their own goals. Once they set that goal in a category, this example being kilowatt hours, they can then use this portal, the software, Foresight is what it's called. They can go in, they can put their goals in there, they can track their information on a monthly basis. They can then see, how am I doing year over year? They can normalize against the weather. As a previous plant manager, when we would look at different things and we'd say, oh, by the way, hey, this year I got to reduce my energy use. One of my goals, I want to reduce that total cost. What would I hope for? A really warm winter, right? Because, boy, doesn't it look like I did really good. Using some of the national weather information, you can then normalize and say, hey, did I really have an impact? That's also important to say, I'm trying to make an improvement, right? I did this, where you would go in, you'd make an improvement, and what would you get? A really cold winter. So now leadership in some of the organizations will say, well, you didn't make an improvement. How do you know? So it helps you normalize and justify those business decisions. And you get to where you achieve your goal. We track it on the backside, okay? So what this enables us to do is the suppliers can go in, it's their portal looking in. They put their information in there, they track it, they can see more than we can, all right? They can see some things like financial information that we don't want to see, right? We want to see usage, we want to look at that. Eventually, would we like to have even more transparency where we're trying to work to say, are we buying smart, are we doing good things? Of course all that's important to us, but that's not the key. The key is reducing our overall impact. We can look at it year over year, month over month. We can begin to track and see who's our biggest user in particular areas, and are there ways we can reach out to them. Those types of things are what we're trying to see on the backside. The value to the supplier we hope to drive is that they can have a usable model that helps them, instead of creating their own spreadsheets internally, that they can track those 12 things, or those, which one of those 12s are important to them. They can look at them, measure month over month, site by site, building by building, and try to see where can I make the most improvement. Because that's what we believe in. It's not about simply getting reporting. It's not about simply getting somebody to tell you something. It's not about simply about somebody coming to you and saying, yes, I'm conforming, because we as the customer have that ability to say, guess what? You're going to do that. The important part about this from a foresight, from a Midwest Energy Group that we see, is that it opens up to all of you, to all of the other customers of our supply base, to people, that it is a low-cost solution to do the simple task of tracking measurements to make improvements. Okay? And we did this, like I said, deliberately. And I think this is a key message for all of you when you think about what you're trying to do inside of your organizations. Are you deliberately going out into your community and trying to find ways that not only do you improve what you're doing, but are you helping the community as a whole? Because together we can do more. We can have a greater impact. And so that's the key for us, was to not make an internal measure, an internal software, an internal something that only the people with Herman Miller have access to, and that we can go out and get lots of good press and get lots of, all of those things. It's more about, do we have a solution that's workable, affordable, effective, and that. So that's where we were at. So when we think, kind of to wrap some things up from a supply chain collaboration, again, this is where we'll have the largest impact. If we collaborate and we look at the total supply chain, we look at what we're trying to do on the overall, and we help each other through a transparency, through sharing ideas, through trying to target those areas that maybe we drive waste inside of the system, work together with the suppliers to say, where are ways that you're doing things you think you need us to drive waste inside of the system? We can work on that together. It makes financial sense. When we look at these things, if we can lower the total energy costs, if we can lower the cost, the environmental impact, all of those things from a triple bottom line, it helps our business, it helps our suppliers' business, and quite honestly, we're in the business of making profit now and in the future, and we expect our suppliers to do the same. Okay? Finally, when you talk about certifications, this is the good part of, from a sales perspective and all the rest of that. When we're doing this, in the past, if we were looking like at a BIFMA level, our industry, we'd come in, we'd be getting audited, we'd have to reach out, we'd have to say, oh yeah, we're engaged with our suppliers. Well, how are you engaged with our suppliers? Well, let me go show you these files. Let me go pull you this up. Let me go do these other things. Today, what we can do, so some of the things we've done, is we walked out and said, okay, we're getting audited. They say, how are you tracking your impact to the environment? We click, we open, we show, we share, and it's that fast. We don't have to create paper. We don't have to share files. We don't have to do those things. It helps us from a certification perspective to let our customer know we're doing the right things. And with that, I'm all done.